Today is just one of those days where I have a couple of pieces laying around from some old projects that I don't know what to do with, so I'm going to try to put them together and see what happens. I have this old set of dyed Yeezy 350 soles, which just so happens to match pretty well with these Human Race NMDs. So I'm going to throw the Human Race uppers on the 350 soles and see what happens. For the first part of the project, I'm gonna have to do everything that I possibly can to deodorize these Human Race NMDs. These uppers stank so bad because of how much I had worn them before detaching them that even a traditional sneaker cleaner wasn't doing the trick. I ended up soaking them in some isopropyl alcohol for about 48 hours, and that helped to deodorize them. While the uppers were soaking and deodorizing, it was time to prep the soles. I broke out my Dremel and utilized a grinding bit to help to grind away all of the glue from my previous Sole Swap Hybrid that had failed. Once I had grinded away as much glue as I possibly could with my Dremel, I broke out the acetone and cotton balls and used that to help to remove any sort of remaining debris and glue. Once the uppers were completely dry, I did the same exact thing, utilizing my Dremel with a grinding bit and then some acetone and cotton balls to remove all of the factory glue from them. I officially have these Human Race NMD uppers and the soles of these 350s totally prepped and ready to be bonded together. What I realized is that with this setup, I'm gonna have very minimal support for the uppers and I'm not gonna have any way to lace them up. So what I decided to do is grab a pair of absolutely beat Ultraboosts, and I'm gonna remove the heel cup as well as the lace cages and use them on this hybrid, so then that way I have more structural support and I have a way to lace these things up. Thank you so much to the homie Hype Meets Heat for sourcing these Ultraboosts for me. To remove the heel cup and the lace cages from the Ultraboost, I used my steam gun. I angled the steam at the seams where the uppers met the heel cup to break down the factory glue, allowing me to peel the uppers away from the heel cup. This exposed the stitching, which I was then able to cut using a razor blade. I continued to work with my steam gun, pointing it at the section where the midsoles met the heel cup, which helped to further break down the factory glue and allowed me to easily peel away the heel cup and the lace cages from the midsole, completely detaching them cleanly. I was able to successfully detach these Ultraboost lace cage and heel cups without any sort of damage, and the combination actually looks really cool if you ask me. However, upon further review, I think that there's going to be too big of a size discrepancy. As you can see, the heel is all the way flush, but if I rotate to the toe, you can see that there's almost like an inch gap there. So I'm gonna have to pull a little bit of an audible here. I'm ditching the 350 soles, and instead I'm going to opt for this pair of Adidas 4D soles. But I'm also going to be dyeing the soles, so that would be part of this process too. I'm gonna have to get them prepped, and I'm gonna have to prep these lace cages so that they can fit appropriately on the 4D soles. The removal of the 4D soles happened on this pair of ZX4000, and I started by applying acetone to the seams where the uppers met the midsole. After letting the acetone sit for several minutes, I used steam from my steam gun to help to break down the factory glue, which allowed me to easily peel the uppers away from the midsoles. I made sure to continue to use steam as much as necessary in order to make sure I had a clean detaching process. With the 4D soles removed, I also had to prep them, and for this process I also used my Dremel along with the grinding bit to remove as much factory debris and glue as I possibly could. I continued working with my Dremel and grinding bit to remove the Ultraboost from the heel cup since this was no longer going to be a Boost shoe. Then I continued working on the heel cup and the lace cages to remove all of the factory glue and debris that still remained from the removal process. With all of the factory glue and debris removed from the lace cage and the heel cup, it was time to get them aligned on the 4D midsole. I realized that this plastic ridge was going to interfere with the alignment and the seating of the heel cup within the 4D sole, so I continued to use my Dremel with a grinding bit to grind away all of the plastic ridging so that everything would seat appropriately and I would ensure proper alignment. With all of my prep work completed, I pulled out some sky blue RIT dye, some royal purple RIT dye, and some royal blue RIT dye. I wasn't a huge fan of the original color of the midsoles, and I wanted to try to get a nice purple color. After a couple of minutes worth of dyeing, these things came out a brilliant purple, and I finished off my prep work with a little bit of acetone on some cotton balls to finish with any sort of glue and debris removal. I've nearly finished my prep work on these soles as well as these Ultraboost lace cages. Unfortunately, to bond these lace cages to the soles, I'm gonna need to do a little bit of trimming material so I can make sure that everything fits appropriately and won't cause any discomfort once these things are finally finished and on foot. Because of how thick the plastic of the Ultraboost heel cup was, it wasn't going to seat appropriately in the 4D midsole, so I had to continue to use my Dremel, but this time I used a sanding bit to help to remove a lot of excess plastic so that the heel cup would seat better in the 4D midsole. Once I had everything aligned appropriately, I used a heat erasable pen to help to draw exactly where the lace cages and the heel cup would fall on the midsole so I could start to bond them together. With everything properly aligned, it was time to start gluing. I used Barge Super Stick cement with 2 coats applied approximately 15 minutes apart from one another. Once I had both coats of Barge Super Stick applied, I let it cure for about 5 to 6 hours. After curing for 5 to 6 hours, it was time to use a heat gun to reactivate the Super Stick, and using pressure from my hands, I was able to bond the lace cage and the heel cup to the midsole without any sort of problem and got a nice, strong bond between the two. Now that the lace cages and heel cups have been bonded to these 4D soles, it's about time to bond the uppers to the soles, so let's get into that process. I'll start gluing the uppers to the soles by first aligning the 2 components and then using a heat erasable pen to trace exactly where the 2 pieces are going to fall one another to get them to line up as best as possible. With everything appropriately aligned, it's time to start to glue these pieces together. Again, I'm going to use Barge Super Stick cement, applying 2 layers approximately 15 minutes apart from one another. I find that 2 layers is going to help to give me the strongest bond possible, which means that I'm going to be able to wear these kicks with confidence, knowing that they're not going to separate. After I've applied my Barge Super Stick to both the uppers and the midsoles, I'm going to let it cure for about 5 to 6 hours, so then that way it's going to make the bonding process a bit easier for me. After I've allowed my Super Stick to cure, I'm going to align the heel portion of the shoe. I'll then use heat from a heat gun to help to reactivate the Barge Super Stick, and then apply strong pressure from my hands and fingers to press the surfaces together and allow them to bond as best as possible. Once I've finished with the heel, I'm going to move directly to the toe, which will allow the lateral and the medial side of the shoe to fall in line a little bit better and make my alignment process quite a bit easier. I'll continue to reheat section by section, applying firm pressure from my hands and fingers along the edges of the shoe to make sure that everything looks like it's seated appropriately and lined in the proper way. Once I've finished aligning the edges and bonding everything, I'm going to apply some heat internally in the shoe and continue to apply strong pressure from my hands, so then that way I get a nice strong bond at the footbed of the shoe as well. And with this, I've completed my bonding of the uppers to the soles. Bonding process on this 3-way Adidas Frankenstein hybrid went really well. And now I'm at the final steps where I need to do some touch-up work and throw some laces on these bad boys. At this point in the project, it was just some touch-up work to do. I used a brass bristle brush on my Dremel to help to even out any sort of scuff marks on the heel cup and the lace cages, and then for the first time ever, I decided to use a soldering tool to custom engrave some sailboats in the heel cups. They turned out a little bit rough, but I'm really excited that I got the experience, and in the future, I'm definitely going to have to mess around with this technique a little more. Finally, it was time to lace up these kicks and call it a day, because these things were finally complete. My three-way Adidas Frankenstein Sole Swap Hybrid is finally complete, so let's dive in to take a closer look. I was especially concerned that these uppers wouldn't fit appropriately on the soles just because of the way that they flatten out quite a bit when they're taken off of their original sole, but at the end of the day, these things came out looking pretty damn cool. The dye job on the 4D soles is a lot deeper of a hue of purple than I had initially anticipated, but it actually matches the purple from the original Human Race NMD soles very well. I have thrown these on and walked around in them, and I can verify that they are definitely really comfortable, and I cannot wait to wear them more in the future. If these shoes had dropped back in 2015, 2016 era, the world would have been going crazy because all three of these silhouettes were very popular at that point in time. While this project may have come out a little bit cleaner if I had used completely new kicks, I'm really excited with the way that these things turned out, and I cannot wait to wear them. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think about this Sole Swap Hybrid, so let me know in the comments below. As per usual, thank you to everybody that stuck around until the cold, bitter end of this video. You guys already know, I'm Sailboat, and I'm out of here.